You're now ready to start installing Debian. You will need to use the keyboard rather than mouse throughout the installation process. Select Install, and then choose your language. Choose your location, and then choose your keyboard layout. The Debian installer will attempt to configure your network automatically. As long as you've got an internet connection on your host machine when you start the installer, then there should not be a problem. If you do have a problem, just make sure you are still connected to the internet and you can browse the web with your host machine. Also make sure that you did not make any changes to your VM's network settings in VirtualBox. By default, new virtual machines like the one you've created are given a virtual network adapter. That virtual network adapter allows them to connect to the internet through NAT, N-A-T, which stands for Network Address Translation, the same way that your home router does. Just make sure that you didn't change or delete this virtual network adapter. Some users may see a screen that asks them to specify some name servers. Name servers are an important part of the domain name system, DNS, and allow your computer to obtain the IP address of a given domain. I like to use 9.9.9.9 as my name server. That's a company called Quad9. If you're not sure what to put this. And if you don't see this screen, don't worry. It means Debian has automatically detected your DNS settings for you. I'm going to be boring and leave the suggested host name, Debian, as the host name. And then you can enter anything you want as the domain name, or you can leave it blank. Next up, you'll be asked to set a root password, and I'll be talking about the root user in detail later on. Now, I would love to talk about passwords and password managers here, but I think that might interrupt the flow of this demonstration. So all I'm going to say is pick a long, strong, unique password for this root password and make a secure note of that password because you will need it later. Verify your password. Debian asks for your full name here, but I always just type Jim. And then using that name, it will suggest a username for you, Jim with a lowercase, that's fine by me. And then choose another strong, unique password for this user. And again, make a note of it, a secure note, you will need it later. Remember that this virtual machine is using a virtual hard disk, and so there's limited damage you can do to your real hard disk at this point. Choose guided, use entire disk here. And then there should only be one option to select, so hit enter again. And I'm going to put all files in one partition, that's fine. All I'm going to do here is finish partitioning and write changes to disk, hit enter again. And write changes to disks, yes. You'll need to go across to the left to select yes and then hit enter. And at this point, you'll just see a progress bar as the core system is installed. You'll be asked if you want to scan another CD. You just need to choose no here. And now if you can, you want to choose your own country. If that's not possible, choose a country that is near to you. I'm going to go with the default here of deb.debian.org. This is where Debian is going to get the rest of the files needed for the installation. Leave this blank and hit continue. It's possible that you'll run into this error message at this point, and it's really not the end of the world if you do. It can be caused by bad network settings or bad DNS settings. One way to solve this problem, and it's probably the easiest way to solve the problem, is to select Go Back. And then you will see a menu of all the previous installation steps. What I want you to do now is disconnect your host operating system, Windows 10 in my case, from the internet. You can do that by unplugging the Ethernet cable if you've got one of those, or by disabling your Wi-Fi connection. Once you have Wi-Fi disabled, go down to Detect Network Hardware and wait for those steps to complete again. And this time you will be given the option to select your name server addresses. You only need one. If you enter 9.9.9.9 and then hit continue, you can choose go back again. If you do need to make more manual checks or changes, you can do that by selecting configure network manually. Otherwise, go back. You can then resume the installation from where you were before, which was configure the package manager, and you should not see that bad archive mirror message this time around. Once the Debian installer has successfully found a network mirror and that's all working correctly, you should see this software selection screen. The only change I'm going to make here is remove print server, since I'm not going to be connecting a printer to this virtual machine. Hit continue. And now Debian will connect to the internet and it will download those additional files and install them. This would be a good time to go and get a cup of tea. When asked if you want to install the grub bootloader to the master boot record, just choose yes and hit enter. And then choose the second option here, which is the hard disk, the virtual hard disk. And here, all you need to do is hit continue. At this point, the system will reboot. And you can choose to start Debian by hitting enter or just wait for the timer to run out. And here we have the Debian 10 login screen. Rather than logging in at this point, what I want you to do is shut down this VM and take a snapshot of it. You'll notice now that you have the option to send the shutdown signal. And this is like shutting down the computer properly. You should always choose this option. Then click the little icon next to your Debian VM here, and you'll be able to choose between details, snapshots, and logs. If you click on snapshots, you'll get a different view. And what I want you to do here is take a snapshot. And you can call this anything you like, but I'm going to call it fresh install. And I'm going to click OK. Now, unlike a physical machine, if something goes wrong with this Debian VM, you can easily revert back to a snapshot with very little fuss. You just click the restore button here. Taking snapshots means you can restore a snapshot if something goes wrong. So rather than reinstalling your Debian operating system from scratch, you can revert back to this state in the future. In the next lesson, we will start configuring this Debian VM.